Here. Thank you so much. Okay, so Lourdes, I was on Facebook, which I know I shouldn't be, on the Talent Search Director's Facebook page. And I caught maybe there's more conversation about it right now, but it was like I was coming in on something late about footnotes. Did somebody say we need to be putting something in footnotes? And someone said, oh no,
Mhm.
a one page table of contents. I don't know if I can do that, but the footnotes are killing me. And then
Mhm.
someone said, you don't need to be doing footnotes. We're doing a separate bibliography page. And I'm like, what?
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
why do I need a So I'm like, have you
Mhm.
heard anything about that, Lourdes?
No, so actually, though, for if anybody attended any of the COE sessions, they did mention because in the application, right, it says, what to include in your attachments, and there was conversation in that one liner, right, that add your logic model, add all of these other things into the other attachments, including bibliographies, resumes, all of those things. And I think that's where that's coming from, Lisa, is that some folks heard that, and I know I heard that also from COE when they did their proposed writing sessions to say, in the event, we're, because I think we're all freaking out about all of these smaller details, things that we've not normally done. But because it's written into this application, it's like, should I do that then? Should I add a bibliography? I know that COE through folks who participated in their sessions because they're institutional members, they, I know, said, hey, here's a sample bibliography, right? Really just kind of like a one-page thing, add in your references here. We do that throughout I think especially in the needs section, we do that already
Right,
within our charts and tables.
right.
But I think it's because of that, right? It's written into the application. And so people are like, maybe I should attach something. It doesn't count towards the page numbers, but they want to hit all sides, right?
Just because it like is mentioned
Mhm.
as an example, this, and
Mhm.
this, because in some proposals through the department and Department of Labor, they're
Mhm.
required. My thing is like, a reader wouldn't even go there. They would have no
Mhm.
access to that. So you can't get any
Mhm.
points for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, okay, so that's what I was thinking.
Mhm.
That it was just there. So I couldn't even
Mhm.
think, like you said, I put all my references are right there underneath the table so that reader doesn't
Mhm.
have to look at footnotes below. And I don't
Mhm.
put a separate page because they're already there. It would just be duplication. Um,
Mhm.
the other thing I did notice, and you pointed out to me, actually, a client mentioned it to me, and then you showed me the screenshot. And I don't know
Mhm. Mhm.
if you can display that screenshot. I'm not at my laptop. The one that said,
Mhm.
where does this application, the
Mhm.
federal form, does this application address GEPA? And
Mhm.
on what
Mhm.
page number, right? They want
Mhm.
to know what
Yeah.
page number. So I put it on two different pages in the
Mhm.
plan of operation. I decided to put that little statement, that the
Mhm.
selection, after we say the director selects, and I say, based on town search eligibility, I put additionally, XYZ town search program does not, or, the language about does not discriminate or ensures access depending, whatever, and GEPA. So I put
Mhm.
it there under selection. And then I went ahead and after I talked about my plan to deliver services, before I went into, I guess, the question about the overarching college strategy, I think at the end of question number 3 within the plan of operation, after I talk about the plans to deliver services, I ended it there, basically saying, by the way, we don't, we make sure we fall under GEPA. And actually, I have it a third time under applicant and community support when I mentioned that the offices and the buildings and all the facilities are accessible. So I actually mentioned it 3 times, but that's
Mhm.
about it. Where are you
Mhm.
mentioning it, Lourdes?
I'm not you. I'm mentioning it in several places. I know because we do have to address it. I think if anybody's online that was participated in EOC's technical meeting this morning, that question was brought up again about what about GEPA? Is there a form? Is there, and she mentioned it's exactly like it is in Talent Search, right? That there is a question on the supplemental form where that asks the question that, and I'll bring that up here in a bit. that asks the question about where within your application did you address GEPA? And so the instructions kind of look like, tell me what page number.
And it
However,
doesn't.
this morning, though, they mentioned, the presenter mentioned that in that line, you don't have to just say the page number. She said you could add a one sentence, you could add a paragraph to say how it is you're addressing GEPA within your application. So, but yeah, but that's what was the question, right? About you, there's not going to be a form. We already know that. There's not going to be an additional page we upload. However, we are being asked the question about did you respond to it and where in your application did you respond to it?
And
And
so
that
I
was
can answer that or attach a separate attachment or
mhm,
address it. Okay, cool.
or address it. So within that small area, because it doesn't give you a whole lot of space, but she said you could state something there. And it
If it's
wasn't just limited to saying a page number. So,
gotcha. Okay, okay.
mhm,
So all right, so that was good. And someone said in the chat, I prefer footer to use put the citation of your
mhm,
tables in the footer. That's fine.
mhm,
That's not my preference.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
just have to say, as a reader, I'm just not used to it. Maybe Lourdes. That's why I
mhm,
would. I had to think about that for a second. I said, why would I want to look down at the bottom? And what if I had on one page a couple of citations, and I guess it just adds on at the bottom. I don't know. That's just me. I'd rather get it over with and put it underneath the table right away. But
mhm.
that's me. Okay, so let's look at some of these questions here, Lourdes. Good morning. I have a question about using the AP definition for rigorous secondary school program of study. So that is the last definition number 6. We're going to switch to this to make sure we show need, right? Because I don't think anybody would wants to switch to it, right? It's because you have to switch to it to show the need, but I'm not sure how to present it. I have data about how many students take AP and how many pass, but I don't have data about how many graduate passing 2 or more. Is it enough to show how few take it and pass the AP tests? That's a tough one because you're not going to give them the exact definition that they're asking for. Um, you know, what's really super hard is to find the comparison. And the best I could do, Lourdes, is to actually, there's no national um, rate on rigorous secondary school program of study available because every state uses something different, right? Or every and even if we had the same 6 definitions, somebody might pick something else. So I know nationally what has been used nationally is the AP of how many
Mhm,
students take the classes. And so it kind of is on par with that. And I believe, if I
mhm,
remember correctly, I think Lourdes, it's 22%
mhm,
nationally do that. But so there's the comparison, but again, you have to try to find uh the right definition for your target area. Lourdes, I don't know if you
mhm,
want to add to that, but that's a tough one. I know it's always been tough.
yeah, I agree. And I think with almost a lot of things that we put into the needs section, is that we need to come up with a definition, right? When we said this is what I'm looking at, we had to really define within there, you know, what's the data that I'm using and how did I come up with that definition? So it's going to be different, I think, for many of us, because of that.
And you could also try to get the target schools to tell you what
Yes.
do you think. I mean,
Mhm,
I know there's no official on the website for the state or
mhm,
the district, but if you're tight with them, hey, at this
mhm,
target school, is there any way for y'all to find out for last year how many of the students here were registered for 2 or more? And can you do any sort of follow up to see how many passed? I mean, you got to give it a shot to try. Otherwise, you could come up with some estimated guess. But at best, it would be a guess, and you could possibly lose points for if a reader like Lourdes and I would probably be able to spot that. Oh, I see. They're talking around it, so I don't think they gave me the right baseline. And it's going to be that competitive, unfortunately, where we could say, "Hey, they didn't give me the correct baseline." Well, I don't. So if I don't have the correct baseline, how do I know if you might not get dinged in the needs section, but in the objective section where they're going, wait a minute, that's not really the baseline. Just letting you know that's kind of what happened to me in the past when I was using the cohort graduation rate for the the baseline for 12th grade graduation. And they said, nope, it has to be 12th grade graduation, my dear, not ninth through 12th graders for that objective. Here's another one, Lourdes. New applicant. We know it's highly competitive, but there is a high need in our area. We cannot find a true definition for persistence. Is there anything official or standard definition grantees use? I'll go first and I'll turn it over to Lourdes. But when you say there's a high need, people usually say, oh, yeah, there's lots of low income kids. And there's lots of people in the area that do not have a bachelor's degree. And I said, okay, congratulations. That's two out of the like 10 pieces that were hurdles that you need to show a need. So the question is, new applicant, that every single target school that you're wanting to include in this new competition, this new grant with no prior experience points, they have to show need, that they have academic need in all of those objectives listed. They're all academic objectives. And the very first one is on persistence. And that's the one that everyone, even existing grants, are struggling like crazy to show need. And if you want to know what the definition is, there's so many definitions, but what you have to actually utilize is the wording of the objective dealing with persistence. So, and it's not in the RFP. You got to look at the program profile form that was issued separate, or everyone, I think it's in grants.gov, but it's a separate document called a program profile form, and they have the wording of the objectives there. So you need to use that wording because they're very specific about students that, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but they say students that went on to the next that remained enrolled but went on to the next grade level at the target schools. And guess what? Shocker, but the schools are promoting everybody. So it's super,
Mhm.
super high. So it's not
Mhm.
showing a need. So Lourdes, I'm gonna let you take over.
Yeah. So, the persistence question is always a difficult one to answer because of the reason that Lisa just said. Everybody gets promoted. And it's also in the way that your state defines that promotion, right? Because like in Colorado, for example, a student, even if they left the school and went down the street to the alternative school at the next grade level, is considered promoted, even though the student dropped out of school. And oftentimes what happens is if, and many of us, when we're working with our schools, we know that the counselors will say, well, yeah, I sent that student over to the alternative school. And so our notes indicate that that student was promoted because we sent them over there. But there's no follow through to say, did that student even really enroll at that alternative school? So oftentimes to respond to this, we've used our own surveys of the schools, to ask them what is, and you have to ask them specifically that question, right, to address this persistence. How many of those students, do you know and with respect to students that were your school actually are at your school in the following fall at the next grade level, and to remove from that count any students that they may have sent over to the alternative school, students who may have gotten a, GED or because they left, right? Or not that they got a GED, but that they enrolled in a GED program, because then you can't even assess what grade level they are. So those are specific questions that often come from that direct survey that you might ask from your school administrators.
Lourdes, even when that, it's still high because they promote
Mm-hmm.
everybody or
Yes, they
people
promote
move
everybody.
in.
Yeah.
So you cannot, I've never been able to use the
Mm-hmm.
state's official
Mm-hmm.
enrollment numbers. I have to
Mm-hmm.
go to the target schools and say, look, this is the deal. You know that, like Lourdes said, they're only counting people that don't persist, that don't, say they're leaving or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it's swept under the rug. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I need for you to be for real with me because I need to show a need. So I need to
Mm-hmm.
ask your professional opinion. What percentage of kids that were here last year come back at the next grade level, not just, maybe it's by credits, because sometimes, Lourdes, people come back and they really don't have enough credits to be in the next grade level, but they're enrolled, but not technically at that grade level. Or I have to throw in, well, what about if we do GPA? What about the number of kids that came back to the next grade level with a certain GPA, like a 3.0? Okay. But then I have to also ask for what they think the district will be. Or maybe I'll compare the 3.0 only kids to maybe the overall rate. So I may use the state's enrollment as the comparison, but I say, you know what, they say it's 99%. But when I asked the
Mhm.
schools how many students went on to the next grade level at a 3.0 or higher, it was only 76%. So out of desperation, Lourdes, a Hail Mary, I may grasp onto that. Not that
Mhm.
I
Oh, yeah.
want to, but I
Mhm.
have to and make a case for
Mhm.
look at this.
Mhm.
They need us. And at 3.0 is only a
Mhm.
B, and Talent Search is a program to help students, to work with students that already have some potential for post-secondary
Mhm.
success. So I kind of spin it like these are the students we should be recruiting in the program. Those
Mhm.
that already
Mhm.
have a 3.0, and look, these they're at 76% compared to everybody else that they just pass on. So I may
Mhm.
have to do that with some folks if they can't get
Mhm.
the apples to apples comparison for the district and the state, if they use a 3.0 GPA or higher to show the need. And I think all
Mhm.
of my clients, I think only one client was able to show a need, just regular
Mhm.
need without having to
Mhm.
go that route.
Mhm. Yeah. Sometimes within our needs survey, we also, not that it's going to be our answer for the question, but sometimes it might be a supporting statement, that we might ask the schools to say, okay, how many of those students, right? But we may also say, like, how many of those students that, are that you consider are both first generation low income that are not progressing. So then we indicate that, based on responses from our needs survey, you know, this is an issue, it's a concern because the school is showing this persistence rate. However, when looking specifically at, first generation low income students, the school has indicated this, and really trying to draw on um, that this
Right,
is actually happening within the school.
right. And this is it's something that luckily, Lourdes, they haven't said like in some grants that I've
Mhm.
written that you can only use certain sources,
Mhm. Yeah.
citations. It
Mhm.
doesn't tell you that.
No.
So I put the source is from target school counselors or
Mhm. Mhm.
target school administrators. They're
Mhm.
the
Yes.
experts. They told me this because
Mhm.
otherwise, I don't think anybody on this call is able to show a need in persistence if they
Mhm.
just use the state numbers from one grade level to the next. It's in the 99. Some people say it's 106 because more
Mhm.
people moved in, Lourdes.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
oh my God. And it's a crazy
Yeah.
objective, but when you say you
Mhm.
have high need, I
Mhm.
say no, you don't. You don't have high need until you can show me that every single um objective, that you have a baseline. We have the five objectives, that your
Mhm.
baseline
Mhm.
for each of your target school, not just collectively, but
Mhm.
each target school is showing that they're doing
Mhm.
worse in all those baselines. Then you can tell me you have high need, because just because you have a lot of
Mhm.
students that are low income and a lot of people that don't have a college degree,
Mhm.
everybody on this call can say the same thing.
Mhm.
But that's just 20% of that need section.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
And
you want to go ahead and answer
well,
that
I
next
wanted to
question?
say one last thing
Mhm.
is that I remember in, oh, excuse me, one of the sessions, the technical Department of Ed slash labor um, technical webinars. So somebody asked that question specifically and said, "Can I just use the dropout rate?" And the person that was responding said yes. So
Oh
it's
no,
like,
yeah.
oh,
Well, the dropout rate officially is like 1% in Texas.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what it is in Colorado too. Nobody drops out.
Of
So,
course not. Isn't that crazy? Real quick, I forgot to. I was going to
Mhm.
answer this. I was going to type this up, but I hit answer live. So real quick,
Mhm.
do you recommend we get a letter of support from our university president or provost? And if so, do we include it in our application? I definitely recommend you get a letter of support from your agency head or the college president or whoever. That letter, again, number one, you should mention that you have a letter of support on file in your applicant and community support section. And then you definitely should mention in a table summary of all the commitments that your agency will be providing or your college, the title of that department, the top head, and exactly, a bullet, a summary of what they said they're going to, offer. Now the question becomes, what about that letter of commitment? Well, typically we've been told don't upload those in the submission. Just make sure you have them on hand. Lourdes was saying that COE was saying, well, you might want to upload something in that other attachments because it mentioned letters of commitment, even though the readers are not going to see it. So it's up to you. I look, you do what makes you feel better. I'm not going to I'm not going to force or tell my clients you better upload that. If you want to upload those letters of commitment, go at it. But the readers aren't going to see it. But I'm going back to now the narrative. But it is important that if they are giving you solid commitment, and especially in the areas of the absolute and invitational priority services, which I've shifted my, Lourdes, I kind of had to revamp that whole applicant and community support. And I had to get rid of some things like facilities or even IT to make room for the departments on campus that are more closely related to giving me something that I can say is related to the priorities.
Yeah.
So I had to do that. So,
Yeah.
long story short, I would not worry about that. I would not worry about uploading it, but you can if you want to. But the main thing is to mention the goodies within the narrative where the reader can see it and give you points for it.
Yeah. And for these recommendations, so yeah, I really appreciate the work that they've done and the recommendations they've provided. And they're trying to be very cautious, right? And like they asked for this and there, so there wasn't that they were saying upload all of your letters. They were saying if you want, you can add a couple, because the application again says resume, all of these letters and so then they said, if you feel like you need to respond to that, then they said, then put a one-page table, right? Of here are all you already mentioned them within your narrative, but here's all the letters, right, that we received. Here's, you, you know, kind of trying to respond to some of those questions. So I think they were trying to just be cautious in terms of like, especially for those of us who are like really at that detail level to say, am I going to feel better about it because I have a listing of these are all the letters of commitment that I got. Even though I've already addressed them within the narrative because it was mentioned in the application itself.
So you do you if you want to if you
Yeah.
want to do it to make
Yeah.
yourself feel better.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
points are associated with it.
No
Um,
points.
the
Um,
readers don't even go there.
yeah.
They're just going to see the 65 pages and
Hmm.
the priorities. And the
Hmm.
priorities, Lourdes, I have to keep
Hmm.
reminding myself they are not getting scored.
They're
They
not
are
getting
not
scored.
getting scored. You just have
Hmm.
to put it together and make it make sense, of course. I mean, you don't
Hmm.
want to put anything down there, but I was going back, did I cover this? And I said, wait a minute.
Hmm.
Why am I
Yeah.
freaking out so much? They're
Hmm.
not getting scored,
Yeah.
you
You
know?
know, Lisa,
So
the thing with some of these things is that, I think we're like double guessing ourselves and the things because,
of
we've been doing
course,
this for so long.
we've
It's like
been
it puts that seed of doubt into what we've known.
we're traumatized, right? We're
So I hear
traumatized because
you. I hear you. And I meant for many of us joining you today, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like I've never second guessed myself in that. And I'm
so
like
many
second
times.
guessing. So,
Yes, me too,
but
y'all. Me too, y'all. I've just been in the past. In the past, I've been more right than wrong. See,
I did want to mention though, but I think that, we there's this lack of communication, right, that's happening with what we're hearing from folks from the Department of Ed, the
or
Department of Labor, and
or conflicting information.
conflicting information. So there's so many things. I mean, even this morning, okay, the question, um, there's a lot of questions, kind of like we have here today, right? That about these small little details. And a question was brought up this morning about the attachments. And so here in Talent Search, we hear those attachments are not counting towards that 65 pages. Yet this morning in the EOC meeting, they said, you just be careful with what you add in the attachment because it's counting towards the 65 pages. It's like, wow.
Gosh, see, more
So,
reason not to put anything in there.
so it's like, wait a minute. And then it's like, oh. and then of course, their general default statement is that we're going to put those notes out there on the website, for
You,
you in response to all of these Q&As, and I have yet to see them.
you
They've
know,
not.
Lourdes, you bring up a good point because that was
Mhm,
many years ago, but it was when they moved over to being uploading,
mhm,
electronically using grants.gov that we wrote
mhm,
a Title III, and we were told to
mhm,
upload attachments. Like, and for that Title III's, we were asked for resumes
mhm,
and uploading the attachments. Do you know we wrote a really great proposal, but it never got read because we exceeded the total number of pages for the attachments. Because one of the folks that put a resume, he had a 25-page resume.
oh my goodness.
None of us checked it because who would have thought someone would have had a 25-page resume? Number one. Number two, who would have thought there would have been a space capacity? Uh, so you never know. So you could go crazy and put everything in there, and you don't find out till later. Oh, you know what? We forgot to tell you. We couldn't even read your grant because it wouldn't allow us to submit the whole thing. So anyway, just about that.
Yeah.
Someone put
Yeah.
under budget. Is it not a good idea to include current staff years of service with individual salary amounts? For example, a clerk for 8 years. I usually don't. I act like there's no names. I get no, you know, no identifying information or information about how many years in service. I will tell you that sometimes I run across a client's budget and I realize the clerk is only at maybe 50%, but the 50%, if we were to add the other 50%, is making more than the assistant director. And I'm like, what's up with this? Oh, yeah, they've been here like 20 years. I said, well, maybe I need to put something like that in the narrative. Maybe. Lourdes, would you not agree? I mean, otherwise I don't go into that detail unless I feel I have to, that it looks weird.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I don't include, any information about years. Um, uh, I used to say, like the current director, has this many years of experience, um, but now it's just like I need to write it that this is the role of the director and the qualifications and that quality,
That's
the
true.
personnel section. I did want to mention, and thank you, Becky, for your comment in there. At the end of the day, they default to the RFP, and so I mean, that's that first statement that they make, right, in the Department of Ed technical meetings, is that whatever we're telling you, the RFP takes precedence. So even though we may have given you wrong and conflicting information, you have to rely on the RFP.
Shit, I wish
So
I could say that, Lourdes, before any training or anything. By the way, don't
yeah,
disregard anything I'm telling you in case you find out otherwise that I was wrong. Not my fault.
mhm, yeah.
Did you want to answer this next one about the needs? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I was meant to say that I was going to answer the question, and then I accidentally hit the wrong thing, so I left it
Oh,
up there.
did
But
did did,
no,
did
no,
you want
no,
to type it or talk about it?
no, I talk about it because I accidentally hit that thing. But the question is that should we say where we got our info, and should we actually put the link?
or should
And
we do the link?
you do need to indicate your site, your source, right? So you do, and remember that you want to use something that's within 3 years. And in the event that you used anything older than 3 years, you have to indicate why you use something older than 3 years. Um, I think the recommendation about putting the links is not a good one. So if you
Yeah,
heard that, do not put links in there.
I
Um,
agree. I totally agree
yeah.
because I can't read as a reader.
Mhm,
I would
mhm,
have to check your, I mean, number one, you don't
mhm,
want the reader to have to check your site. So just tell
mhm,
me instead
mhm,
of that, it was from the link that says National Student Clearinghouse or whatever, just for
mhm,
not that I had to use that, but you know what I mean? Just write out National Student Clearinghouse enrollment report for 2024, retrieved or compiled on this
mhm,
date in 2026. You know what I'm saying, Lourdes? It's
mhm,
there, but I
mhm,
would not put that in the link. And I definitely
mhm,
would just, if you just put the link, oh no,
mhm,
I'm going to
mhm,
be like, I'm
mhm,
not going to click this to and
mhm,
double, you know what I'm saying, Lord? It's not that a reader
mhm,
will, but it's just kind of
mhm,
annoying. And,
mhm,
you keep the links on your internal spreadsheet along with the source, but please name the website, not the link to the website.
Mhm,
Do you
mhm.
agree?
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a question in here, and thank you, Lakeisha, for your comment too, that in the SSS proposal, they deducted a point for years not being included. That's interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
I get it. I
Mhm,
could see
yeah,
that. I could
mhm.
say saying, "Hey, I don't know what for year this data is it. I'm assuming it's the
It's
latest
so.
year, but you didn't put it down."
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have for TS eligibility. What are you saying? U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen or something else? Well, I'm not sure, but what I know
Mhm,
that when I talk about identification, recruitment, and selection, I just mentioned the word that we're looking for students that are talent search eligible, but I don't
mhm,
break it down into saying this, or if they're more than the
mhm,
country for more than a temporary basis, that they could also
mhm,
qualify. I don't go into that at all. I just stress that we're going to
mhm.
identify, recruit students per the the eligibility requirements and to focus on the two-thirds being low income and or first generation college students. Lourdes, I don't know if you even mentioned the words that they need to be
No.
U.S. citizen or eligible. Yeah. Okay.
So I just say eligibles, and I've noticed that in the last, because I did several of the technical review meetings, that they've only been saying citizens or permanent residents. So we know the law says all of those, for more than a temporary, but I'm like you, Lisa, I'm not indicating that. I'm just saying that students who are eligible based on the regulatory requirements and legislation. But I don't go into like, you know, about the documentation that getting a letter from Homeland Security about, I don't,
Right.
no, 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 I'm not going to do
Right.
any of that. I don't want
Right.
to draw any attention to that.
And I also don't want to
Mhm,
go into the detail about, oh, here's the definition for what low income means,
mhm,
150%. This is not a policies procedures manual.
mhm,
And I had to tell myself that, okay? Because
mhm,
mine was written like that and I liked it being that way because then I
mhm,
would I would feel that people could take the proposals that I wrote and it would give them enough information to implement the program. Well, I've
mhm,
discovered, especially this time around, that I can't have it both ways. I can't give the readers what they're being told to look for, especially in these priorities, and also make it as detailed as it has been in the identification, recruitment, and selection process to use as ready to go. So, I had to take that language, step one, step two, check this, check that, look for this.
mhm,
I had to bless it and let it go and be okay with it. And I'm struggling with it, but I needed the room for the priority language, because that's what they're looking for now more so, I believe. Here's someone that says, and what I'm going to say when I when I say this or read this out loud. It's a great question, but could Department of Ed disqualify my application during pre-screening because I didn't include things in the attachments like letters of commitment, resumes, that kind of thing? I mean, uh, they could at this point. Nothing would surprise me, but it, it wasn't a required document. They mentioned it because I know that and Lourdes, it's literal because with some proposals, like with Gear Up, you have to turn in specific forms. You have to submit resumes. You have to have MOUs. So this blanket statement of something that really was not asked for at all, except in this one little statement, I don't think it's appeared anywhere else. Again, if it makes you feel better, you got to do what makes you feel better. You've already got the letters of commitment. Okay, put a few in there. You want to put your resume in? Go for it. Um, I don't handle the submission. My responsibility is to get you everything that will be scored. So I'm coming from a different mindset, right, Lourdes? Um, that's my job is to get you the narrative and the priorities.
mhm,
All this other stuff, I'm not as well versed in it as you are, Lourdes, because you do a lot of submissions. I haven't done submissions since
mhm,
not even when I was a director. Someone else did it for me, and
mhm,
and and I'm constantly getting asked about submission stuff, and I find out
mhm,
stuff from you, and also what other clients have experienced that I can pass on to folks. But it's not my thing.
mhm. Yeah, I'm happy to share my experiences with it and things to watch out for because, I mean, that's that part of the way it's really nerve-wracking, right? Because you
So
got to be
are
careful
you
with
going to
everything.
do you feel
Mhm.
comfortable sharing if you're going to upload stuff there, or are you just going to bless it, leave it alone?
hmm Well, there are some things because I mean, even there's a question, Jamie, we hadn't gotten to your question because when we were talking to about GEPA earlier, and in COE's webinars, they talked about this civil rights law and a separate statement, and are we going to attach that as well in that section and uploads? I know the things that I'm going to be very careful and very like not put too many things out there in the attachment section. Um, Many of those, again, just because I've participated in so many of the different sessions and webinars and things, and what I'm hearing from folks is that I think I'm going to keep it minimal. You know, if I feel like I need to, um, because, you know, Lisa, this part of being at that place where you're like, now I'm just doubting myself, right? And I don't like to be there. I want to say, like, I feel like I've answered the questions, I've given them what they've asked for, and the minutia of all of these small little details is like the part of it that's putting that seed of doubt in me and things that I've done. I mean, I've been at this what for 39 years, and it's like
Hmm.
why now, 39 years later, you're putting this doubt into me. So
Right?
I don't like
Right?
being there. I don't like being there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't like being there with my narrative either. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
that way with my narrative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Second guessing myself. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
all ask me questions about submission, I'm like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
really
Yeah.
out of, I'm not even on
Mm-hmm.
that planet with y'all. But just, I tell people,
Mm-hmm.
do what makes you feel comfortable. And if there's anything in the
Mm-hmm.
narrative that you need, I
Mm-hmm.
can show you where it's there, or
Mm-hmm.
I can squeeze it back in there. But the attachments,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love you, but that's all on y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
I
well,
hate to be that blunt.
part of that, the attachments too, as well as that, and just in thinking about this entire application, is that it also has to be a certain size. Otherwise, it's going to get rejected because you have way too many attachments in there. And
Well,
so
like,
that's why I said I'm being very selective. How
right.
I word those attached, how I name those attachments, how many attachments I'm going to put in there. And that I need to, even thinking about all of those attachments, I need to like probably put them into one folder to say like how much and what size is all of these documents, because that's going to impact the size of this application, and then it'll be thrown out like your application
Like
right at
mine
your
was, right? We
resume,
didn't
right?
we didn't know,
Mhm,
and they were prepared for it. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know anybody
mhm,
who's out there with IT. I'm thinking when you set
mhm,
these things up, you
mhm,
probably designate you can't say a limited space, so you probably guesstimate and say, oh, let's give them this much space. No one will ever, especially for this
mhm,
competition,
mhm,
overload this, right? Oh, here
mhm,
comes Lisa Redamozo,
mhm,
who's very, very, she's just putting everything in, another
mhm, mhm,
65 pages in. It took it, I think.
mhm,
And then I find out later, oh man, I broke
mhm,
the
mhm,
bank. So I don't know. Maybe it's unlimited storage. Who knows?
mhm, mhm, yeah,
But no one is really, Lourdes, I doubt anyone is going to go combing through it and saying, here's a
mhm, yeah,
bibliography, here's a
mhm,
resume, here's a letter of support. Oh, let me check up their proposal. Oh,
mhm,
they mentioned 4 letters, they only have 2 letters here. Or
mhm,
resumes. I mean, I don't know how they would do that. How would they
yeah,
know? How
mhm,
would they
yeah.
know? Before I forget, I wanted to ask you about, we talked about this briefly, but what are you doing about that separate budget attachment? And we talked briefly about how the federal forms, and you sent me, I think, that information. I think it was you, Lourdes, that sent me that, or somebody else sent me some information. The federal darn forms are not matching up with what compliance wise, how we have to deal with participant support costs. There's a disconnect.
Yeah. So, so there's different things, right? Typically, we've just provided the budget for the first year. And, and
In the
given,
narrative.
in the narrative, in the project narrative, the first year. But this time we're being asked in the budget narrative that we upload to include a 5-year budget. And so I think I mentioned the approach that I'm going to take is that I'm probably going to just expand my current budget that's in the narrative, and maybe put it like in a table format to be the budget narrative that now shows year 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know, I might edit the descriptions within each of the, like my first column, I think I mentioned that my first column will be my narrative itself, right? With each of the additional columns being the amount of money that's being allocated to that. There will be places where I might say, like in year one, funds will be in this particular line item are going to be spent, for this. But then maybe in year three, I'm going to expend some of that money rather than buying laptops or whatever that year. That money is going to be used for an external evaluator if there's any associated cost. So I'll include that within that budget narrative, but the line amount will probably stay the same.
Right,
Um,
because even though you
mhm,
all realize it can't be a real budget, because in real
mhm,
budgets, your
mhm,
salaries go up and
mhm,
your insurance goes up and the cost of stuff goes up. But
mhm.
guess what?
Yeah.
If you're if you get funded, you're going to stay, I'm pretty sure, and you can't predict the future. At best, you're going to stay level funded. So it's going to be the same amount,
Mhm.
Lourdes. You can't
Yeah.
put a gap,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
so you
Mhm.
either adjust things and start taking away from stuff
Mhm.
if you want to
Mhm.
try to be for real. Or again, what
Mhm.
I would do is, I told you what I would do is I'd take my first year budget and just say, okay, this is for the second year, the third year, fourth
Mhm.
year, the fifth year. It depends. Again,
Mhm.
that's an attachment. So you just do what makes you feel better.
Mhm.
Um, just make sure that you have something that says, here's the budget for
Mhm.
for each of the 5 years.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
And even at that, I think we've all in with our state budgets, and especially if we're at institutions of higher education, there may not be any raises. The salaries might be frozen for the next 5 years.
Oh, who knows? So it's just a
You know,
placeholder, I believe. And
yeah,
honestly, I think they're just gonna
yeah.
say, oh, they turned it in, but are they gonna read it to realize? Because what if you were for
Hmm.
real? If everything
Hmm.
stays the same and your salaries go up, if you try to be
Hmm.
too for real, you're gonna show a deficit after the first year.
Oh
you're,
yeah.
you're going to be short money. And then what is it going to
Hmm.
be like? Oh, I'm telling them that I've run out of money. If someone actually read it, they'd be like, well, what's your plan? Who's going to commit to that? And your college is going to be, we don't want to commit to that. And the reality of it is we usually have carryover because, or we within the same
Hmm.
year, because we don't always have all our field trips happen or all our people are in place. So we're somehow able to make it happen. So it's
Hmm.
just, I would say, whatever format you want to utilize, as long as you can say,
Hmm.
hey, it's a 5 year budget. It may not be
Hmm.
for real, but at
Hmm.
least I'm not
Yes.
showing a deficit.
Hmm.
Someone is asking this question. I'm going to answer it live. I asked ED to help us with LER and where to find free resources. And they were like, what? you know, and what's an AI wallet? And they're like, they didn't know. Because that's a Department of Labor thing
Hmm.
mainly. So that's why I believe, Lourdes, is a perfect segue to remind people that tomorrow, at what time, Lourdes?
Oh, I'm sorry, the time. Yes, the department is running theirs, and let me take a look at
I don't know
my
if you have that email to show, or
calendar.
if you could put it in the chat,
Mhm.
because it came out late last week that there is going to be a technical assistance workshop for talent search just about the
Mhm.
priorities. And so that's where y'all need to be um asking them, yeah, what do you mean by what's AI wallet, LER, where can I get those free resources? I don't think there are too many free resources. If any of y'all know, please put it in the chat. That's why in my budget, when I got the extra money, ha ha ha, for serving more
Mhm.
students, I put it in tutoring, online tutoring, and into supplies that would allow me to purchase these
Mhm.
things possibly, or connections.
Mhm.
So that's where you talk about it in your budget.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's fine if you just put that into the chat. And what I was surprised, I think, was that it isn't noon for me. I'm thinking 12 Mountain Standard Time, but I was surprised it's 2 hours long.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, what are they gonna? I mean, that's why I'm dying to attend it, but I can't, Lourdes, because I'll be presenting on EOC. So y'all are gonna have to tell me if there's something earth shattering that, once again, am I gonna
Mhm.
have to revamp something or
Mhm.
stress, or maybe it's a, hey, just so you don't come back and let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about what these things are so you can be aware
Mm-hmm.
of them. Yeah, they're new to me too, Lourdes. I mean, the more I
Mm-hmm.
found out
Yeah.
about them, I'm like, oh, Big Futures has an
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
LER feature or a
Mm-hmm.
digital wallet.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what they called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they make it sound so fancy. They've had some of us have been
Mm-hmm.
using those College Board materials where you could start an
Mm-hmm.
individual, basically an electronic library or
Mm-hmm.
a storage for a student, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Regarding college choice, career information.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I understand it is, right, Lourdes? I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
attend the
Yeah.
workshop tomorrow to confirm it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's as
Yeah.
complicated as it gets, right?
Mhm. It's
We'll
super. But if for folks who are still looking, maybe go out and go to Lair at ler.me
Mhm.
and it's a free one. Um, if you're wanting to find a little bit more, I recommend that one.
And
Um,
maybe
I,
they'll have some of these listed
mhm.
tomorrow. But is it about
Yeah.
both
Oh
priorities or
yeah.
just absolute priority tomorrow?
It's an absolute priority. So and
Oh,
so
but
because I'm not sure who that email came from. It was a person I'm not familiar with, or
right,
hadn't even heard
right.
that person's name. So,
It came out
um,
on Friday or Thursday.
yeah, Thursday, I think, Thursday.
Yeah. So Donna, I can't see, but I think Donna put the information in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in the
Um,
chat. Yeah.
okay, thank you, Donna. And some of y'all that
Mm-hmm.
Mary
Mm-hmm.
Alice, I was trying to get that to you. If there's the
Mm-hmm.
link, if you could register for it, because I won't be able to
Mm-hmm.
attend and y'all need
Mm-hmm.
to give me
Mm-hmm.
notes on it. Has the FAQ been released for the Department of Ed? You know how they said they were going to release the questions and answers, but
I
I don't think they have.
I've not seen it, so
Has anyone
maybe I
else
need
seen
to
it
do
out
some
there? Let
digging.
us know if
Yeah.
y'all have seen it. You'd think that'd be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice on how to explain why we chose the comparative school
Oh, yeah.
if demographics are not the same? Do you know what
So
that
that's
they
a great
mean?
question. I'm glad that you. So I was going to respond to it earlier, and then all of a sudden it disappeared, and so then I thought, oh, okay. So I'm glad that you've asked that question again. I think sometimes when we've tried to compare the state data to maybe a target schools that we're working with. I know I did this in my Upward Bound application. Is that I referenced a highly resourced comparative school because I wasn't showing significant need against my state data. And so I referenced it and said, in a school where there's a great deal of resources, because it's a very wealthy school, it's one of the most highly resourced here in the state of Colorado. I said, this is what they're doing, how their students are meeting, test scores, and they're the cream of the cream, right? Of getting resources and services. And here we are, a low resource school. In that particular instance, I think I showed, this is how much money they get per student because I was able to find that data for my statewide data compared to them and said, now here's a comparison. So that's an example of how I use a comparative school.
And are they talking about when you're not able to show need the regular
Significant.
way
Yeah, yeah,
with
in the needs section.
when we compare our target schools
Hmm.
average to district or state and we have to grab onto another school to kind of compare? Or
Hmm.
sometimes some of my clients in one case are comparing kids at the same school, kind of like an SSS thing, the talent search eligible compared to the non-eligible and how they're doing. Um, it never says in the directions that you must compare them to district, state, or national rates. It's just the way that it usually is, right? But if you're in a
Hmm.
situation where you have to latch on to something, I mean, compare yourself to the tree if you have to, but explain your rationale in a way. And it's gonna throw off a reader. You can't help it, but maybe you'll
Hmm.
get someone who will appreciate, at least they
Hmm.
tried, and maybe I'll give them partial points, or I see what they're talking about,
Hmm.
but then when you go back to everyone else being, you could tell there's going to be a shift. So it may throw somebody off. So make sure, like Lourdes said, you kind of explain your little detour because the worst thing you can do is not talk about it and think that it'll be okay, because it will be like, huh, how did that happen? What's going on there? I didn't pick up on that. So, that would be my advice. Did EOC receive a similar training session? And if so, what day and time? They haven't talked about it for EOC. They just said it's for talent search, but the information is there. You can log on. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm probably going to be by myself tomorrow, Lourdes, talking to myself about EOC, since mine is being recorded too at the
Mhm.
same time for EOC, the update. So
Mhm.
I don't know if it says this one will be recorded, the talent search
Mhm.
absolute priority one will be
Mhm.
recorded or not. I would assume, but I haven't seen the recording for the Department of Ed's technical
Mhm.
assistance workshops either.
No.
So, I mean, me, myself, and I tomorrow talking to myself if y'all attend that. But that's
Mhm.
fine. Mine will
Mhm.
be recorded, and we usually get it out within 24 hours. So at least, you can get that from us. So we answer that live. So let's see. We've got 10 more minutes left. Anybody else have any questions?
Mhm. Yeah, there's a comment in here, James. Thank you for your comment. So I just received this email from our sponsor programs office. Um, your narrative form needs a little work. The RFP says that travel costs can only be used for grant staff only. All travel not specific to staff needs to be included in the other section regarding participant support costs. Same for any supply costs specific to participants. For example, the award ceremony needs to be in the other.
I think I saw this
Mhm,
earlier on
mhm,
Facebook, but yeah,
mhm,
see, that's where I'm telling you, you're gonna
mhm,
um the RFP says travel costs can only be used for grant staff only. Well,
mhm,
under staff travel, yes.
mhm.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But participant costs are supposed to go under they're listed there, but they're taken out again. In a way,
Mhm,
the way it's set up on the
mhm,
federal form, Lourdes, this is what I'm talking about. There's
mhm,
no uh there's no modified total direct cost
mhm,
column.
mhm,
So on the federal form, you'll have to put participant travel under other, correct? To make it
mhm.
work.
Well, all of the instructions has said to include travel, participant travel in travel. So they said put
Oh,
staff
okay.
and participant travel in
Okay.
travel.
Okay. I
So
stand I
they did
stand
state that.
corrected. Okay.
However, when you go out to fill out the form, the SF 424, the part of the budget part of it where you're filling that out, there is no line for you to calculate, that says this is your modified total direct cost. So that's not on there, but you would normally have that within your budget, because the amount of money that you put in the indirect it is not there's not a formula on there, right? So if you put your budget in, if you're looking at your budget narrative, for example, you've included within your budget narrative, this is my modified, and then this is the indirect cost. Simply plug in the indirect cost, and then make sure that it totals the amount of money you're requested.
Right. So you can modify, you can make it
Mhm,
work
yeah,
so that
you can make it work.
let
Yeah.
me tell you what I'm getting is that from the bottom line is
Hmm.
that it if you're in you can't ask for any more. Let's say it's 300,000, 300,000. If that's the total, that's fine. Right. I mean, you don't want to calculate it so it's over if you're asking for 300,000, right? So when it's all said and done, if you're going to serve 600 students, then you have to make sure that when it's all said and done, you work it out so it says 300,000 at the bottom, not a penny more, not a penny less. I did want to talk a little bit about this question here, Lourdes. When they said again, travel costs can only be used for grant staff only. Okay, I get that. It's either grant
Hmm.
staff or
Hmm.
students, so no
Hmm.
one's getting okay. Um, all travel not specific to staff needs to be included in the other section. So that's why I made that
Hmm.
comment that, oh, so they
Hmm.
want the student travel to go under that. I don't know if they're
Hmm.
talking about consultant travel or what other
Hmm.
travel would go. I know
Yeah.
training, like, what they probably mean,
Consultant, like your external evaluator. Hmm.
or registration fees,
Hmm.
sometimes people put that in travel and they're not really
Hmm.
travel. Registration fees for any training, Like any
mhm,
trainings that we do, professional development, or even when
mhm,
you attend COE's professional development training, you're not a
mhm,
member and you pay a registration fee, even though it's
mhm,
online, it's considered other and it's not considered
mhm,
travel.
mhm,
Now it's specifically participant support cost travel. See, it says there that they
mhm,
want
mhm,
a student travel to go under other.
mhm.
Same for any supply
Yeah.
costs specific to
Mhm,
participants, which is not true because now
mhm,
they're forcing, it seems like, this paragraph of what they sent, and I'm
mhm,
sure it was copy and pasted from the directions.
mhm,
They want what traditionally is participant support costs to be part of other, because they don't,
mhm,
so like
mhm,
the award ceremony, yes, I get that that should be under
mhm,
other, but so
mhm. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
They're breaking the rules.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. James, I guess my recommendation would be to show them, or even, screenshot from the application itself, of here's where it's indicated to include participant travel. um, into this travel category. However, maybe if you have your budget, I would say, here's my modified direct costs. And then show within your budget narrative how, you have a modified so that participant travel isn't being subject to the 8% if that's your situation, right? And you're not getting that indirect back. Um, and
So
so, yeah.
the RFP,
Hmm.
if you follow the RFP and these
Yeah.
directions, you actually would be, correct me if I'm wrong, Lourdes, out of compliance in the long run because you're taking 8% out of student travel and you're not
Mm-hmm,
supposed
mm-hmm.
to.
Yes.
So a couple of things here.
Mm-hmm,
And that's what I'm going to struggle with because I know that our budgets are correct. You and I know compliance, we're correct internally, ready to go. But now the instructions are saying to do otherwise.
mm-hmm. Well, I think confusion lies in that the instructions say, because the instructions, Lisa, make it appear like there's formulas built into the application that it's going to take 8% or charge the 8% on that participant travel. But that's to that comment that I just made. You as the person entering the information into, and we'll get to the question about grants.gov, is that you're indicating what your indirect is. And so the form is not, there's not a
Automatic. There's not a,
automatic. Yes.
so you can
So
be,
we're
you can,
doing the same thing we've normally done, right? To
right,
say this is my indirect.
but
Mhm.
it's always a disconnect. So you're right. I'm remembering now that, so what has to happen is that you put in the right amounts in the different
Mhm.
areas. So it
Mhm.
works out.
Mhm.
Um, so, but the question is, do they want your internal budget in the budget section to match that same listing is the question.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've in the past recently, I know that my clients have
Mhm.
turned in the budget narrative in the budget section using modified total direct costs that the readers see to be in compliance. And then they go ahead and make it work on that budget form. That's federal because they, like you said, they plug in the amount. So they end up
Mhm.
asking for not a penny more or not a penny less.
Mhm.
And when we do our annual budgets, you have to, you have to do the modified total direct cost. So
Mhm. Yeah.
it's just like it doesn't give you room to put that in, but you can make it work, is what you're saying.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, James, I would just say, you know what, at this point, hey, okay, what do you need? Even,
Mhm.
and it's on them, and
Mhm.
what are you going to do? And that's
Mhm.
unfortunate, right? That it reads that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah. And this is a challenge, and James, it's a great question, a great conversation, because at the end of the day, you have to follow university policies, right? And so,
Yeah, you're not going to win. You could be so
mhm.
right, you're wrong. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
You can
Yes.
sit right, you're wrong. Say, you know what? What do I got to do to get it done? Okay, and then you keep your
Mhm.
own little record, and it'll work out because when it comes time, to just get her done, right? Like we say
Mhm,
here in
mhm,
Texas, just get her done, get her submitted. When
yeah.
you're refunded and when it comes time to do that first annual
Mhm,
budget, then you'll be able to go back
mhm,
and forth with the program officer and you'll be able to give them what makes sense to both of y'all right now. So
mhm,
just I would, yeah, just what do you need? Let's get her done. No one, you won't get in trouble for putting it in that manner or however the manner that they want it to be in. The readers don't see that. No one's going to look at it right now for compliance. Just give them what they want, basically, Lourdes, right at this point.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So,
We have a few more questions. I know we're
oh,
rapidly
okay.
running out of time. So I don't
Okay.
know, we've got other meetings, but the question about grants. Are we using grant solutions? No, everyone uses grants.gov for the submission of this. And you will either create a workspace using grants.gov and upload documents to that, or you will have somebody from your institution, maybe even your organization, who is creating that grants.gov application and uploading your materials to it. But grants.gov is the tool that will be used to submit the grant. Do you have to do LERs with students? I would recommend that you do, because remember, that's the intent of that, and especially if you're addressing the invitational priority. That's part of that priority, is that you're going to create LERs with those students, teach the students, help them create those LERs, and not just create them, but to manage them over the course of their experience in middle school or high school, after high
And
school.
but
So
I want to point out that you don't have to build them. Okay, you
no,
don't you
no.
can purchase them or find
Yes,
free
yeah,
ones. You
yeah,
just need
find a
to
free one.
expand access to, repeat after me,
Yes.
expand access to LERs.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
And
So yeah,
I'm glad you said that, Lisa, because when I said creating them, I'm talking about creating that profile within the
right,
LDR.
helping them fill
Yeah,
it out, like how this is how you
yeah.
go to Big Futures or
Mhm,
College Board or Princeton Review and or even Cambridge
mhm,
Education, this is how you
mhm,
establish, like create a new login, but not build it, right?
mhm.
And yes, you want to take this last one about the instructions contradicting itself. You're absolutely
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Page 21 and 25. One says yes, the other one says no. That's James.
Mhm.
If you're still on, you may want to show them that and say, hey, look, it's contradicting itself.
And yeah.
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. They're not perfect, and we as heck as are not. But
Mhm.
so yes, they are contradicting each other, and that's so annoying. And when you get to this part, the 11th hour, right? Everything just right now is just like not
Mhm.
again. Like when I heard about
Mhm.
footnotes, I was like, I got to do footnotes. Where did that come up? You know. But if you like footnotes, do you? Bottom line, like Lourdes and I were saying, Lourdes, I think we're on the same page on that. Upload as attachments. Just make sure you're not going crazy with too much space. But you know what? Do what makes you feel better. Okay. That's all I can do is if you do you, I can't do it for you because I wish I could, but but if you want to take the extra thing to make yourself feel better, go for it. Right, Lourdes?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
you cannot risk aversion. Like, how risk averse are you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
right. Thank you all so much. I
mhm,
hope you guys are I feel better after talking to y'all. I hope y'all
yeah.
feel better after talking to us. And Lourdes, thank you as always. Couldn't
Mhm.
do it without you.
Yeah.
Also, Dawn and Leah.
Yeah.
Y'all,
Yeah.
we'll see you next week, I believe. I gotta double
Mhm.
check my calendar, but thank you all so much. Hang in
Mhm.
there and
Around the
tell me how the
calendar
absolute
this.
priority goes. And EOC folks, sorry
Mhm.
we took over, but tomorrow
Mhm.
we'll be talking about EOC tomorrow if you can join us,
Mhm.
okay? Thanks
Yeah.
everyone.
Thanks, Juliana, Leanne, Lisa, for the opportunity to join you and having this platform for all of us to come
Thank
together
you
and
all
share
so
our
much.
thoughts. Mhm.
Hang in there. Bye
Mhm.
bye.
Mhm.
Talk to y'all
Bye-bye.
later. Bye.